1947 was a huge tragedy.
Much of the literature concerning partition is about what happened.
What you brought is a new dimension, the role of music.
So ultimately, Pakistan will implode.
Our politicians are totally lacking in humor. Friendship beyond borders.
Good evening, our viewers and audience. Welcome to this evening's program. We all know that this is the 75th year after the Indian subcontinent came out of colonial rule, and subsequently 3 independent nations were born. There was partition, the free travel across the borders had its impediments, but our desire and urge to have a citizen-to-citizen dialogue continues. And today's is a process in that direction. We have here today, this evening, 2 very distinguished guests. Professor Ishtiaq Ahmed, historian, political scientist, commentator, and especially with focus on South Asia. He was born in Lahore and teaches at the University of Stockholm. And Sri Chiranjeev Singh, a very eminent and respected civil servant, author, linguist, was born in what we call today West Pakistan in 1944. That is before independence and partition. And it is my privilege now to invite the elder brother to begin the dialogue with the younger one in the moment of reunion between 2 brothers.
Thank you, Dr. Chatterjee. Actually, a friend of mine a few years ago once said it was not the partition of India, it was the partition of Punjab and Bengal. And they suffered and they paid the price. And if we have to now heal the wounds after 75 years, I suppose the initiative should also come from Punjab and Bengal. And it's a very happy augury that in this dialogue, both Bengal and Punjab are represented here. So I would now request Professor Ishtiaq Ahmed to give his views on how we can proceed.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Chatterjee and Chiranjeev Singh ji. Both of you have already laid the grounds for our discussion today. Like the 2 of you, I believe with the utmost sincerity I can muster in the unity of the people of the subcontinent, cultural, historical, civilizational. And 1947 was a huge tragedy with which we have been forced to live, but we have not yet come to terms with it. Its consequences have been devastating, politically speaking, and in terms of the constant confrontation between India and Pakistan, and then within communities between different religious groups. So I think all this emanates from the basic demonization, dehumanization of the other based on religion. So I think the wisdom of the 75 years tells us that what happened in the past cannot be undone, but we need to bring forth our best intellectual capacities, our moral integrities to argue for a different type of relationship between communities in a nation and between these two states and the people. So I think this is a very great moment down here in Bangalore, far removed from Bengal and Punjab, that we can, with this sort of foresight, look at these two regions and say that there is nothing like peace and communal harmony. And I think Bangalore is an excellent example of that. Ever since I came to India, after being invited to come and give this talk on the tale of two brothers lost in a fair, that basically people are good. And there is a constant struggle between good and bad, between truth and untruth. And truth ultimately wins. That must be built into our nature as human beings. So I feel at home, very much at home, sitting with you as I do when I am in Lahore or in Islamabad or Karachi. So thank you very much for starting this discussion. It's so close to my heart.
So much of the literature concerning partition is about what happened, what led to partition, and what happened during partition, all those horrible events that occurred. But there's very little about what should be done now to heal the wounds or how to move forward. In fact, your books are also more about what led to partition and what actually happened. So how do we move forward?
Can I just add? In
Yes.
this case, you are definitely much qualified because you are in Sweden, where it is easier for a Pakistani and an Indian to meet together than we ever get a chance.
Quite.
So it is very important for us to hear from your experience and from you, sir, too, because you were at the UNESCO. And when you are sitting at the UNESCO, you don't distinguish between nations and nationalities.
Yeah, quite
Science binds us
Quite
together.
right.
So we'd like to hear from both of you.
Well, you see, one thing constant in my life is the weekend lunch. And three of us always, occasionally others also join us. Ajmal Bhatt, he's from Sialkot. Ashok Bhaskar, he's from Philor, Jalandhar. And we always have lunch. And since we are all Punjabis, those 2-3 hours are just a chance for us to be Punjabi in the full sense of the word. And, people who live there, you find them cooperating at all levels. Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs living in one area would have their local get togethers. And so this is how life is normally. My experience of traveling in the West has been that wherever I hear a Punjabi voice, I'm attracted to it and I start a conversation, and I've never been disappointed. So this urge to connect, I think, is born in us. And it must be with people with the same language and same historical background and so on. So there is a lot to invest in such experience rather than the politically, manipulated situation that obtains in the subcontinent.
Dr. Sab, you asked about UNESCO. I was India's ambassador to
Yes.
UNESCO, and my relations with my Pakistani counterpart were very pleasant. And we used to meet, and he was at one time also head of Radio Pakistan, and we would talk of, and he was a poet also in English. And in fact, I was concerned with the gulf that was beginning to appear in the divided languages. For example, I was friends with the Bangladeshi ambassador also because I could read and write Bengali. And he gave me Lal Shalu to read. I don't know if you have come across
true.
this book.
I have.
Now, interestingly, Lal Shalu, published in Kolkata, has footnotes of, giving the meanings of words of Persian and Arabic origin. To me, I didn't require that because I could understand them. And the same thing is happening. I mean, the two languages are diverging ever so slightly. I mean, this is in the nature of the language. And so is Punjabi. Pakistani Punjabi is getting more Arabized or Persianized. I mean, in Pakistan now they are trying to even remove the Persian vocabulary from Urdu even and bring in more Arabic influence. But here it is more Sanskrit origin vocabulary. So I had given a proposal. UNESCO and UN then had a program, Culture of Peace. So under Culture of Peace, I said, let's have a project of divided languages. And divided languages, I said, include all the divided languages. Here, for example, Punjabi and Bengali and Tamil, the Sri Lankan Tamil and Malaysian Tamil and Sri Lankan Tamil and Tamil Tamil, they are also a bit divergent. So you can have them based, this project can be based in SOAS in London, School of Oriental Studies, because that's a neutral ground. And you have, for example, common vocabulary because we need common technological vocabulary. So whereas in Pakistan, they would get it from Persian and Arabic, we would get it from Sanskrit. And if this continues, maybe 30, 40 years down the line, you would not be able to understand each other's writings. So these are the kind of initiatives which I suggested, but I don't think it has taken off. So, culturally, I think the cultural dimension of partition has not been given the attention that it deserves. I'm sure in Bengali, for example, Ritik Ghatak's work or Manik Bandyopadhyay and those people who came from there, they work, similarly here in Punjabi. But I guess the relationship between the two, cultural relationship between Bangladesh and Bengal is much closer than it is between the two Punjabs, which is unfortunate. And I don't know what can be done about it, but to my mind now, instead of looking at politics, we should be looking at the cultural dimension of how to heal, how to move forward.
When you
Please.
when you say that, I think the cultural argument you bring in is to correct politics.
Yep.
So it's not either this or that, because the type of politics which have flowed out of the partition is based on creating as many differences and using them to prevent the Punjabis, especially from finding common ground. We see occasionally Sikh pilgrims coming to our part of Punjab, but very rarely do we find Punjabi Hindus coming. They do, but first of all, it's not easy to identify them. So I'll give you my own experience of the way I think the basic difference insofar as Punjabi is concerned is not simply the difference which is growing in language, the way vocabulary is developing, but the fact that these are two different scripts. Whereas we use the Persian Urdu script, on the other side they use Gurbukhi. And so people, literal Punjabi on both sides is not easily followed. And as you rightly point out, the vocabulary thing also is playing its role. I give you an example from my own presentation on the third of March 2013, when my book on the Punjab partition came out, I was at the Chandigarh Press Club. And before I spoke, a Sikh gentleman presented the welcome address. And then when I had to speak, I said, well, what he has said has touched my heart, but I haven't understood a word because it was so heavily Hindiized, syncretized academic Punjabi. But then I had the chance to speak for about an hour and a half in my, colloquial Punjabi, which is Lahori Punjabi. And I remember elderly Sikhs and Hindus coming and holding my hands, and they said, it's now that we have really heard real Punjabi, and these academics have played havoc with our language. Another incident, on the 4th of March, I was in Amritsar at Guru Nanak Dev University. And there you had to make the public speech on the book in English, which I did. And then there was Q&A session, and I went through that as well. Then when everything was over, I climbed down and I mixed with the students and started talking to them in Punjabi. And I noticed some people were looking at me in a very curious way, as if this creature has landed from Mars. And then one girl dared and said, Sir, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਤੇ ਬੜੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸੋਹਣੀ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਹੋ. Sir, you speak very beautiful Punjabi. And for a moment, I didn't know how to handle her question. But apparently, she didn't realize that just about 48 kilometers from Amritsar, where I was speaking, is Lahore, and then the rest of Punjab, and 100 million Punjabis who normally have their conversations in Punjabi. This Urdu-speaking middle class is a very limited phenomenon, more so in Lahore and in Islamabad. But you go to the smaller towns, at home even people are speaking mostly in Punjabi. The influence of Arabic and Persian has actually taken place in the case of Urdu, because Punjabi, unfortunately, in Pakistan is completely neglected. So it has retained its its native sort of vocabulary down the centuries. So that's another dimension of it. About Bengal, I'm not very well informed, but I would imagine that they have more in common. They have the same script as well, and less of that confrontation than what we have because of the 4 wars started by Punjabis and fought on Punjab mostly. That has aggravated the estrangement between the two Punjabs and the politics. So coming back to culture, I have proposed that while people should continue writing in the Shahmukhi and Gurmukhi script, why not consider Roman as our language of communication between the two Punjabs? Why can't we translate these works being done, poetry, short story, novels, into Roman so that people start reading what the literati is doing and thinking on both sides? But I think people are still very conservative, and they think bringing in the Roman script would be like something alien Western, and we rather stick to Gurmukhi and Shahmukhi. But then I say that this problem will always continue. When two Punjabis will meet, they will most certainly be able to have a long conversation easily with a few vocabulary words here and there problematic. But both would be illiterate if they were to read the literature produced by both sides. So if we can push for Roman as the common link between the two Punjabs, culturally, I think that makes sense to me.
Dr. Saab, IT is coming to our rescue here because Punjabi University has created software which automatically changes Shahmukhi into Gurmukhi and Gurmukhi into Shahmukhi. So this problem of using Roman, I think, has been now taken care of with this software. But in Bengal, as Dr. Chatterjee would say, music is also a very strong binding factor. It's the Rabindra Sangeet, Nazrul Geeti, I mean, Qazi Nazrul Islam's
Yes, yes.
compositions, they are Nazrul Geeti, and Rabindranath Tagore's are Rabindra Sangeet. Today, in fact, one of the finest exponents of Rabindra Sangeet is from Bangladesh.
True.
And so that kind of, though we have common musical traditions, it's not the kind of live contact which Bangladesh and Bengal have, but we don't have now, of course, on the YouTube and through various channels, we do listen to each other's singers. And
I think there are
yes,
more
yes,
cultural exchanges between the two Bengals
than
than between the two Punjabs.
Punjabs.
That's correct. I
But
agree.
also, you see, initially, if you see, even when the classical Muslim poets were writing in Shahmukhi, for example, Waris Shah and others, because the tradition was basically an oral tradition.
Right.
All their kalam, it didn't matter whether it was in Shahmukhi or it was in Gurmukhi, whether it was Guru Nanak Dev's in Gurmukhi and Baba Sheikh Farid's in Shahmukhi. It was basically recited. It was oral tradition.
That's correct.
No, that oral tradition is also broken now. So, and when we are talking of friendships beyond borders and peace in the subcontinent, to my mind, peace beyond borders will come through culture only, not so much through politics, but politics minus culture will not lead you anywhere. And I think culture will also need to, at some stage, take note of the existing politics. No, Punjabi.
Yeah, I mean, we are agreed on this that the cultural roots are the ones that we must explore and bring forth. But that means challenging the way things are done currently on both sides.
Yeah. Now, for example, Maulvi Suleiman, he was a poet of early 19th century from Chakwal. And he said, Peshawar thi Jamna tain, Chamba thi ta Dera, Dera Ghazi Khan. Peshawar thi Jamna tain, Chamba thi ta Dera, Samjan Janan Lok Punjabi, Sacha Sukhane Mera. Mushtaq Sufi has translated this into English. He says, from Peshawar to the Jamuna and from Chamba to Dera Ghazi Khan, Punjabi folk understand and value the truth my verses encapsulate. And so this is actually the Punjab we are talking of. And similarly, Bengal from the borders of Bihar to Sylhet. And so the cultural unity will need to be, I think, kept in view when we are talking of friendship beyond borders and culture beyond borders. These are
I
the
think
sort of
it's
things.
about culture which we are talking about, because politics divides, culture unites. That's the main
whole
factor.
idea.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Sir, I'm really struck by one of your observations. See, when you talk of writing in Punjabi and the script, etc., I have a friend. You know him from Sangrur, Kulwant Singh ji. He says, Dada, you Bengalis are lucky because you have not divided your script.
So that's what point I was making.
Yes, he tells me, because he reads Bengali too. He says, you're lucky. Now, that I always understood. But what you brought is a new dimension, the role of music, which it had not come to my mind before. So thanks for pointing that out. It is truly, I have to... it is true. 1 minute, see.
Yeah.
It's very true. Some of my favorite exponents of Rabindra Sangeet are from Bangladesh.
Bangladesh today,
Yes, please. I agree. Please, sir. Yeah.
No, I think although insofar as the two Bengals are concerned, their cultural exchanges are far more robust, no doubt. But I know that Heer and other classics from our side are sung in East Punjab with the same fervor.
Same fervor.
Huh. And I know even Mia Muhammad's verses and that of Sultan Bahu. All this is
Yes.
being done in East Punjab.
Absolutely.
On our side, I think more effort needs to be made, because whereas East Punjab has embraced Punjabi openly and it's something they would like to hold on to, ideologically, the Pakistani state treats Punjabi as some sort of a liability. And so there is an imbalance between what is happening in East Punjab as compared to West Punjab. We sing a lot in Punjabi and so on, but very little of, from time to time, you do have Punjabi poets from East Punjab being sung in private gatherings in Pakistan. Shiv Kumar Batalvi is very popular,
Yeah.
and a few others. But more is done in East Punjab because Punjabi is very central to the identity of that part of India, whereas we are trying to disown it politically and so on. I'll give you an example which is very tragic. I was teaching in Pakistan first in Lums and then in Government College University every winter from 2013 to 2019. Two of my girl students, I just happened to ask them, what was the mother tongue you declared in the census reports? They said, Sir, Urdu. And I was really shocked because they were very much native Punjabi born. One was a Rajput, the other one was an Arai. So there was no question that they were Urdu speaking. So I said, how come? Why mother tongue Urdu? They said, because our mother speaks to us in Urdu. So they were following a new development in our part of Punjab. Once you are middle class, then you let go Punjabi and you start speaking Urdu. So that's an imbalance in the cultural exchange between the two sides.
Dr. Saab, also, let's look at Sindhi. Now, my Sindhi friends in Bangalore, they say at least Bengalis got part of Bengal, Punjabis got part of Punjab, but we Sindhis who came this side have no province to call ours. Because Sindh was not partitioned. And so when you're talking of the cultural dimension, the division of Sindhi, the language, for example, Sindhi was originally, it had its own script.
It did, yeah.
Yeah, and then they adopted, like Urdu, the Arabic script. And now in India, many Sindhis are adopting Devanagari as their script. Although Sindhi phonetically is much closer to Punjabi. I mean, Punjabi, Saraiki, Sindhi is one continuum, and then with Kutchi and Gujarati this side.
Quite.
But I mean, when you look at the cultural, I should say, the deprivation of the Sindhi in India, that is also a sad part of the partition.
Yeah, that is also emanates from the underlying logic of the partition, that if you are not part of this community, then either the land is divided or the people are driven out. So that's the tragedy. And culture also is affected by it. So now you tell me that they are adopting Devanagari script.
So, yeah.
And in our Sindh, it's the Urdu Persian script being used.
Yeah,
So once again, the script complicates relations between these the Sindhis and Punjabis.
And the traditional culture of Sindh, of Shah Latif, this is basically Sufi culture of unity. And also the influence of Guru Nanak Dev was very strong, is still very strong in Sindh, because Sindhi non-Muslims, Sikh and Hindu, they all follow Guru Nanak.
They are Nanak Panthis. They are called.
Nanak Panthis. And if you see the iconography of Guru Nanak, even on the entrance of the Harimandir, Golden Temple, you have this image of Bhai Mardana on one side of Guru Nanak and Bhai Bala on the other. Bhai Mardana, his rabab player, was a Muslim and remained a Muslim. And he was the one who said, "You have taken me to all the tirthas and now I would like to visit Makkah." So they went to Makkah also. And Bhai Bala, Hindu. So you have this ecumenism, Hindu, Sikh, Muslim, because there was no difference. I mean, it was probably the finest symbol of unity. And that's the kind of culture which we had in the, you can say, the Indus Valley, Indus watershed. As he says, so Jamna thi, Peshawar thai. So all this unity of culture, religion, thought, etc., that has been fractured. So through culture, how do we bring that about? Once again, Sindhi is there, Punjabi is there, Bengali is there. And if you're looking at divided languages, even Tamil, I mean, though Tamil is not a victim of partition, but Tamil in Sri Lanka has had, Tamil people in Sri Lanka have had their own problems. And because the Tamil they use is the one which the Cholas, when they conquered that part of Sri Lanka, it is that old original 1,000-year-old Tamil which they have preserved, and they say ours is the pure Tamil, you people have bastardized your Tamil. So culturally, I think the subcontinent should be looking at the commonalities, the unity.
Absolutely.
And all that is without borders. I mean, our theme today is friendship beyond borders or without borders. Yes, Doctor.
Tragedy is that in order to build that friendship, we have to cross the borders. For example, for him to visit India and for me or you to visit Pakistan is not that easy. But on the other hand, as Dr. Saab has said, and you also said, in your experience at UNESCO, there is so much friendship and warmth amongst us when we meet, but whether meeting is only outside, beyond our borders. And here I will recall one incident. It is the kind of collaboration, respect that two very noted economists of our subcontinent had. That is between Amartya Sen and Mahabubul Haq.
Yeah.
And he writes, Amartya Sen in his autobiography, he writes that when he completed his degree to come back to India, he first went to meet his Pakistani friends in Lahore and Karachi. Mahabubul Haq was one of them. And then said, we started joking. And he writes, in those days, jocular elements in the Indian-Pakistani war of words tended to dominate over manifestations of actual dislike.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so we have taken as if, or many people in both the countries have taken the differences to be more serious and rigid. And that is the way what we ought to break culture and mutual interactions, meetings. These are important. I'll give one more instance. My son studied for his master. He studied at Berkeley doing law. He had many Pakistani friends. And there was a T20 cricket tournament, world championship, where both sides made the biryani because the final was between India and Pakistan. If India wins, Indians would have to celebrate and they have to invite their Pakistani friends. And if Pakistan wins, they would have to invite the Indian friends, and they would exchange the dialogues in purely legal terms, which I don't understand. Somebody gets out, they said, this is not justified in terms of article such and such, etc. So this is joculous term, and we have tended to things too nationalistically and too seriously. This also should dissolve.
I would,
Doctor, sorry.
Please, sir.
Sure, please.
I would add that besides emphasizing the cultural aspect, which is fundamental for us to argue in favor of the unity of the people, we also need to bring into the picture the role sports
Yes.
can play. Because every time there is a cricket match, and if Pakistan has let Indians come or vice versa, the closeness people have felt there is amazing. And so I think we need to work on this by emphasizing that sports should be free from politics, and tournaments and taking part in these international competitions should continue, and they would serve another purpose in our bid to bring people closer.
Can I
So that
please
is
add here? Please, you can finish, then I'll add.
No, please.
Shall I? No, since the question of sports came,
Yeah.
I remember I was 6 years old. Pakistani team was visiting 1960 Pakistan's tour of India. One name I would always hear, and that was Fazal Mahmood.
Yeah.
He was a captain, and moreover, admiration for him was because he had played before in undivided India, where many have seen him play. This is one. And the second thing I know that in 1978, when India made a tour of Pakistan, red carpet was given to only one person, and that was Lala Amarnath.
Right.
He was accompanying the team. So this is a
Fazal Mahmood and Amarnath played in the same club in Lahore.
I
So
see.
that's the rule, the
I see,
relationship.
I see.
Yeah.
Please, sir.
Doctor,
Yeah, I
you
interrupted
mentioned
you.
you mentioned about the jokes which
Yes.
Amartya Sen and Mahbubul Haq
Correct.
would share. Yesterday, in the National Institute of Advanced Studies here,
Correct.
NIAS,
Yes.
there was R.L. Kapoor Memorial Oration by Dr. Om Prakash. And I was presiding over that, and the subject was humor. And in my remarks at the end, one thing I mentioned, I said, our politicians are totally lacking in humor. So if we have to improve things across the borders, we have to inject more humor also.
That's correct.
Not only at the cultural level and personal level, at the political level also.
Yes.
Our politicians, all of them, are so humorless.
They have to be correct. That's the problem. So
Yes, please,
that
yeah.
takes away all the spontaneity.
Not really, because in England you can see, I mean, how
Yeah, our
humorous they can
politicians,
be.
yeah.
Of course, the
true.
British are known for their humor.
Absolutely.
But,
I would say, see, before he's of course now a Swedish citizen. The last Pakistani I have seen was in 2011. He was the writer Intisar Hussain, sir. Yes, he came because that was the Sadat Hasan Manto centenary year. He came to Bangalore and gave a talk. And the first Pakistani I saw in flesh and blood was Professor Abdus Salam in Delhi. He was not yet a Nobel laureate. And later, of course, I had lots of chance to talk to him. And because of his work of setting up the International Center for Theoretical Physics in Italy, we had a chance to go there, meet scientists all over the world, and also mingle amongst Indian and Pakistani scientists with whom, even after 40 years, I still retain a friendship. And I would always be extremely thankful for the effort in building an institution of that kind.
Incidentally, Dr. Saab, when Professor Abdus Salam was given the honorary doctorate by the Guru Nanak Dev University in Amritsar,
Yes.
he came and he delivered his talk in Punjabi.
I see.
And then there was a lecture also by him on quantum mechanics and physics, whatever his field,
Yes, yes.
and that was also in Punjabi.
Oh, I
He
see.
was very Punjabi, very desi, I've heard. I've never met him. Yeah.
Yes, I had a chance, and there was a fixed time where you could just walk into his office without an appointment. And whenever somebody went to introduce that I am from such and such place from India, he knew the map of India like the palm of his hand. He would say, "Oh, Jabalpur. So where do you change your train? Is it at Itarsi?" He would say like this.
That's
So before the
amazing.
man could give the full introduction, he would have given you something about inputs about the geography of India. And when he toured India, he made special efforts to meet two of his teachers. One of name I remember, a Bengali gentleman, he's Anilendra Gangopadhyay in Calcutta. So he had asked government of India to find out Anilendra Babu's home, went there and said that sir, this prize is because of you. And the medal, he placed it in the hands of Anilendra Babu. And the other gentleman was a Malayali gentleman. I've forgotten the name because Professor Salam gave a talk here at the Indian Institute of Science. And before Professor Salam spoke, his teacher from Kerala had come and spoken a few words. So this is the level of gratitude also when, people of real merit, they have for their teachers, irrespective of what nationality or what religion they have. Yes, sir.
Dr. Saab, your books take us to the point up to partition, what led to it, and the different positions taken by different leaders, etc. The question which I posed in the beginning also, that is in the past. What do we do now to have, let's say, friendships? I mean, today's topic is friends without borders. To have friends without borders.
Well, that's the mission on which I have come, and I've been giving talks on this, saying that it is insane to continue working under the shadows of the partition. Two states have come into being, and they have existed for 75 years. It's time to exorcise the ghost of partition, except that there are two states, or let's say now three actually, with Bangladesh.
Yeah, three.
And when there are neighbors living in trust, that area is an area of security, and people can work together to improve their life conditions. So we have to argue against this confrontational postures prevalent between India and Pakistan. India has sorted out its relationship with Bangladesh in a very amicable manner, and Bangladesh is a great beneficiary of that sort of normalization of relations with India. It is primarily Pakistan that I'm trying to convince. I was in Pakistan from the 13th of January till the 17th of March. In 9 weeks, I gave 27 public lectures: Lahore, Islamabad, Sargodha, Karachi, Hyderabad, Sindh, where this was my argument that we have tried to build an ideological state based on a medieval idea of what is the state and what are the rights of individuals, and it has not worked. It has not worked among Muslims, who are 96% of the population of Pakistan. So why not, if not entirely give up this Islamic identity of Pakistan, just make it ceremonial or decorative, but substantively try to bring in as much of a secular element in the constitution so that people who live on the Pakistan territory are equally entitled to the same freedoms and responsibilities as all others. So this is what I keep telling Pakistan, and I also urged the Pakistan government to extricate itself from whatever relationship it has had with terrorist organizations. There is no doubt that Pakistan was used for terrorist attacks on Indian territory, and any such thing would always be a great hindrance in normalization of relations and going forward with friendship. The third would be that the visa regime should be relaxed, let's say for people 65 and above. Uh, Let them meet one another and see what they have in common, what are the differences, and what can be done about them. And a very materialistic way of benefiting from this would be to open the trade route Atari Vaga. And I think, insofar as the people are concerned in Pakistan, they would immediately be able to buy commodities for daily usage on a comparatively much cheaper rate. So I think Pakistan has to do all this. India should also be ready to offer a hand of friendship if from Pakistan there is a, a genuine, sincere attempt to forego the type of politics they have been pursuing, which was based on confrontation and spending our resources, scarce national resources, on competing with India in terms of defense and all. So I have a whole package of things which needs to be done, and I think we all can have our input in this. It makes sense to me rationally, ethically, and as well as in material terms, there are benefits for all sides. It's a win-win argument.
Very true. But you see, Dosam, the problem, for example, the blasphemy laws, which I think are quite a stumbling block in
They are a stumbling
bringing
block
normalcy
within Pakistan.
within Pakistan. I'm saying
So,
in having normalcy. I mean,
yeah,
because it also reflects a certain political
that's what I meant.
direction.
Yeah,
And what you are saying is that you have to change that direction. But
yes.
can anyone in Pakistan now say that we should abolish these laws?
Well, people have done to their very great peril. But if Pakistan continues on the path that they have chosen, I use the word nihilism, which means self destruction. So ultimately, Pakistan will implode. There are grievances in Balochistan. We have this Taliban active in the northwest. So Pakistan is in a very precarious sort of situation. It's only people who are in power who can take responsibility for Pakistan's future and change course. If they don't, then they are already slowly, slow motion, it is going towards some sort of disintegration of society or the social fabric of society. Already, things are so bad. I talk to my friends in Lahore and they say every day our sale at the shop was rupees 2 lakhs. Now we have laid off our employees, and if we make 5,000 on a day, that brings some relief in our kitchens. This is the desperate situation of many people in Pakistan. And I think Pakistan needs more than India to normalize relations with India. And I only hope in India that there is a sympathetic understanding of the two brothers who were lost in affair, but now if they're trying to reach out to one another, that's the time to seize and work on it.
I think here, for Pakistan's internal problems also, culture can play a role in alleviating and giving a direction. What is the cultural situation in Pakistan?
What is the cultural situation in Pakistan? Very interesting question.
Bangladesh, for example, I mean, Nazrul Giti, Robindra Sangeet, their film industry is also now thriving. And the books coming out of Bangladesh are read on both sides of the border. I just give the example of Lal Shalu.
Lal Shalu.
And one of the leading Bengali poets, Shamsur Rahman.
Yes.
Shamsur Rahman and all those, you see, they are there. But Bangladesh culturally is thriving.
Yes.
What is the cultural situation in Pakistan? Though we hear Pakistani music, this side also is Abida Parveen, there is
There are great artists.
and all those singers.
But if there is no
so-
state patronage, that's where the problem lies. The Pakistani state would rather foster a more puritanical type of Islamic identity, and that makes into a killjoy ideology. Everything is questionable. You know, we had a thriving film industries in the 60s. We were doing very well.
Absolutely.
And I tell you one thing, the greatest film ever made on the partition is not from Bollywood, or it's a Lahore-made small budget film called Kartar Singh.
Yeah, I have seen.
Have you
I have
seen
the
that?
cassette of
Yeah.
Kartar Singh.
So
So,
people have been trying their best to bring the two sides together. But if the state ideology is so restrictive, prohibitive, it's only the stubbornness of the artists that they continue, performing and performing very well. They are sought after in India,
yeah.
but now there is a problem in them getting the visa. So that's something which maybe India can help with.
Actually, the artists from both sides, they meet in Canada, they meet in America and England now,
That's
and
correct.
they have
That's
regular get-togethers there.
And
But as you see, I think this situation was summed up very nicely by Ustad Daman. And
ਲਾਲੀ ਅੱਖੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਦੱਸਦੀ ਹੈ
yeah, ਇਸ ਮੁਲਕ ਦੀ ਵੰਡ ਦੇ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਯਾਰੋ ਖੋਏ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਖੋਏ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਹਾਂ ਲਾਲੀ ਅੱਖੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਪਈ ਦੱਸਦੀ ਏ ਰੋਏ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਰੋਏ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਹਾਂ This is from the partition of this land you lost and we lost. The redness of the eyes tells you wept and we wept.
that's the
And
That's
the best summation
really
That's
the
of the
sentiment.
partition.
And this is the way brothers ought to meet again. And I have a cousin. I am your cousin because
Yes,
Bengal
yes,
also lost.
Bengal is-
yeah.
And
We are all-
we will always celebrate that occasion. So I think that was wonderful.
I'm very grateful this was arranged, and this was a wonderful occasion on which to share our views on how to bring people together. So thank you very much.
Well, Professor, I must thank you for inviting me to have this dialogue. And
We are honored.
It's
We
a
are honored to
pleasure
have you both. We are
be
honored to
with
have you
both
both.
of you, and
Thank you,
especially we hope that Professor Ahmed would be able to visit Bangalore again.
Thank
I don't know if you were able to visit Mysore this time, because when I went to Pakistan in 1996, I was leading a SAARC delegation there. And of course, when you are leading an official delegation, you have all those official these things. But everybody, knowing that I came from Bangalore, Karnataka, although I was then in Government of India, but they would ask me about Tipu Sultan's mausoleum in
I've been there in
so
to the mausoleum, and by the way, I went to Mysore also, and the first shop which attracted me was a Sardarji, who had come and opened the shop before the partition, and he was from Sahiwal. So that's amazing.
That's the great connections, and we will strengthen them.
yeah.
So thank you very much. We are honored to have you both.
Thank you, Professor
Thank you.
Chatterjee.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Please.
much.